friends, to the Inspiring You Show. If we haven't met, I'm Henry, and I just really want to say welcome back, beautiful beings, because wow, I have missed sharing in this space with you. I have been on a deep integration journey, recalibrating, recentering, and allowing the next level of light truth to really settle into my body and field. Thank you so much for your patience, everyone. I return now more myself than ever, ready to speak from resonance, not reaction. And so there's so much that we are going to be talking about in the next couple weeks. If you are in my Inspiring You Patreon, specifically the Meditate with Me and All Access levels, you have already been we've already been talking about these things from the various newsletters that I've been putting out, as well as some of the meditation practices that we have been doing. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who has also joined over there on the Inspiring You Patreon. We are so grateful to have you. And if you're wondering what is different about Henry, I did cut my hair. I cut off 12 inches and I donated the 12 inches to Locks of Love, which is a nonprofit charity that provides custom made hair prosthetics to disadvantaged children up to the age of 21. And so I now have a new hairdo, and I feel like I have also transformed in a lot of ways into a whole new experience, new level of beingness. So with that, then I really just want to take a moment to say we're going to be talking about the theme for this podcast episode is what this tiredness really means in May's closing wave and the gut purge. Before we get into it, though, I just want to open the space in alignment with pure source light through my oversoul Sahariel, as well as connecting to Aurelia and the collective guidance light team to really support only what serves the soul's highest embodiment and coherence. So let's just take a moment to arrive, feel your body wherever it is, fully land. Feel the inhale. Take a nice inhale right now. Feel that inhale and then exhale. You don't have to push. You just have to allow yourself to be here. This is a space to listen to what your body already knows. So, before we move fully into today's episode, I just want to briefly introduce something that we haven't named more specifically out loud on the podcast up until now. In the Inspiring You Patreon, specifically the Meditate with Me and All Access levels, we have been talking about this for quite some time now. But something that's been quietly guiding everything behind the scenes is what my guides call the wave of becoming. This is a multidimensional harmonic field moving through 2025. It is designed to unweave mimicry patterns, restore emotional truth, and anchor oversoul embodiment in real time. So, y'all, you do not have to understand it fully to feel it. Yet, if you've been exhausted by things that once felt familiar or suddenly clear without explanation, you're in it. This wave isn't here to fix or upgrade you. It's here to return you to coherence, to undo what was never you, and to reweave you into the rhythm of your own soul. So, in the Inspiring You Patreon, we have been exploring the larger energetic arc specifically called this wave of becoming, this multidimensional harmonic field dissolving, as I mentioned, mimicry, restoring emotional truth, and really anchoring that soul presence. And it's been really, I have learned so much in the last month. And within all of this, the guides asked me to step back from broadcasting for a while, which I did talk about briefly in another podcast episode on why I wasn't, podcasting as much. And it wasn't because I wasn't aligned, but it was because I needed to shift first. because of the integration level of things that were happening. And so now here we are on the other side of recalibration, ready to speak from the frequency we've been embodying, not just describing. So, my friends, if you have felt unraveled, clear, still, or simply more yourself, this wave is already holding you. So let's get into it, because within this, in the last month or so, so many people I've heard just talking about this tiredness. And so yesterday, the guides came in during one of my meditations and said, okay, it's time to start podcasting. And one of the episodes we'd like to suggest is talking about what this tiredness really means. And also May's closing wave and the gut purge. Like it's time. And so then today we're beginning with a felt light truth that many of you have been naming lately. This deep disorienting tiredness. Not the tiredness of just needing sleep, but a soul fatigue, a cellular unraveling, a quiet ache that says, I cannot hold what I used to. And this is not weakness. This is the end of energetic overperformance. And with that, we're in the closing wave of May's energy field. The wave of becoming has moved into the gut anchored clearing phase. And for many of you, that means the body is no longer willing to buffer the collective, the lineage, or the roles that you once lived inside. The Spirit Doctor team calls this a full spectrum enteric purge. Also, clearing out empathic chords, mimicry tones, unspoken grief, and inherited survival scripts are being metabolized through the gut brain axis, as well as the fascia, the womb space, the pelvic area, the liver, and the emotional stomach. So if you're feeling like your body is tired in new ways, like you're full but somehow hollow, or this like silence has become louder than thought, y'all, you're not alone. You're not malfunctioning. You are recalibrating. Now, if you are in my Inspiring You Patreon, specifically for the Meditate with Me in All Access levels, I've been sending out these multidimensional energy reports that often include micro practices. And then specifically for the all access, micro practices for mini dowsing energy sessions, which can support in terms of clearing and helping to recalibrate. So if you are in there and you feel like you need some extra support, head over to, I just put one out yesterday. Head over there and check out those micro practices. They might be able to support you. So the Spirit Doctor team has also said during the gut purge, you might notice heightened sensitivity in specific organs and systems, such as increased digestion sensitivity, bloating, intestinal discomfort, liver tenderness, or a subtle ache in the fascia connecting to the abdomen and lower back. These sensations are not random, they're directly correlating to the metabolism of stored emotional tension, lineage trauma, empathic overwhelm, and ancestral survival patterns that the gut brain axis is now actively clearing. Also, the Spirit Doctor team says your microbiome, nervous system, and hormonal system are all collaboratively engaged in releasing energetic residue. And this is why your body sensations might feel intensified, fluctuating, or unusually sensitive at this time. Hydration, grounding, gentle movement, and conscious breathing can ease the integration of these clearing phases. So, also, then, the tiredness isn't asking you to push through. The tiredness is asking you to stop carrying what was never yours. You're no longer broadcasting survival. You're no longer translating the collective's confusion into action. You're no longer the mouthpiece for what your soul never agreed to say. This is not collapse. It is a precision exit from the pattern of energetic proving. So let the tiredness come, let the gut empty. And y'all, I know that it can be really in the human experience. It can be a little bit like, why am I tired? Or, oh my God, I can't keep my eyes open. Or like, oh gosh, I have to go to the bathroom. I'm running there. I know it can be challenging. And y'all, it has been there for me in the last month. But within all of that, in order for you, and when you're letting the tiredness come, you're letting the gut empty, you're then letting the clarity arrive in silence. I can't tell you how much I have learned in the past month about how important it is to rest and allow yourself to integrate the shifts before talking about them, because it's really important on so many levels, which we will get into further down the line. And for me, as somebody who is a former television producer who then I was, I'm able to create a lot of content. For me to go from, from doing these things to all of a sudden like 100% stop, I heard my guides so clearly, because the greater point for me was, how much do I want what's on the other side of it in regard to whatever, if it was healing, change, clearing, shifting, how much do I want that? And for me, I was like, I'm done with living in some of these patterns that, one, I inherited, two, they might be from the collective. I'm ready to complete them. And so with that, then I was ready to roll up my sleeves and really listen to what the guides were offering in terms of the wisdom and advice. So, and I will say though, it's not always comfortable. The tiredness isn't always comfortable. The gut emptying isn't always comfortable, but the clarity arriving in silence is priceless. And then also just remembering again and again, your body is not exhausted because it's failing. Your body is exhausted because it's freeing itself. And that's the other thing, really learning to reframe your relationship with tiredness and exhaustion. So, what is this tiredness really about? The tiredness isn't one thing. It's a multifunctional signal that your system is doing something important, even if it looks like stillness from the outside. And then here's how the guides explain it in human terms, because I'm always asking, like, okay, can you give me the human explanation on this? So here's what they say. Sometimes the tiredness is invitational. It's your body asking for real rest, not because you're broken, but because for the first time, you don't have to hold the performance together. And then also sometimes the tiredness, it's detoxification. The nervous system is flushing unspoken stress patterns. The gut is clearing old trauma loops, and the emotional field is shedding loyalty cords to group roles you didn't even know you were playing. That is the other thing. I cannot tell you how much I've learned about aspects that I kind of had a hint, but not really. So your emotional field could be shedding loyalty codes to group roles you didn't even know you were playing. And I'll give you an example from my own life. There was an experience 10 years ago where I was in one of those, am I dating this guy? Am I not dating this guy situations? Y'all know. Maybe you don't. But anyway, um, and we had one of those connections, which was amazing at the time, but then it was also really confusing. But I knew on and off that, like, I would ask the guides to clear me, from him, and some other aspects. And I just uncovered a whole nother layer where I didn't realize that there was this aspect of a loyalty cord that then allowed somewhat for him to kind of um, siphon some of my creative energy to his benefit. And I unconsciously agreed to some of it, not fully. And so it's so interesting how, and you can't even like, there's so many elements in terms of humaning and relationship to our soul that we may or may not know. And so with it, it's all about like, coming back to using the tools again and again. And some of it for him, it was about him, learning how to have some sort of a relationship more so with creativity. And he really was inspired on how I utilized creativity when I worked in television. And so I can't you can't even fault because being human can be really complicated. It can be really complicated. And so it's coming back to using the mindfulness tools again and again and coming back to compassion for yourself and others, and then also asking what has come to completion. And so what has come to completion in me with regard to that person is we had a contract that came into completion, and that contract was completed, and then within that there was then shedding loyalty cords and letting them end in terms of also with the soul contract, and letting it end then in compassion, in regard to where we are in this experience, because humaning can be very complicated. So I share that because this is where the self-realization, and then also, asking the questions like what's really happening in my experience, and then asking like 10 more times, because there is what your human thinks is happening, and then there's like what's possibly really happening in regard to the light truth. So it's constantly then using the tools again and again, letting yourself integrate, letting yourself shift, and then also too just enjoying the experience of being human, because as I was discovering some of these things, it just I don't know, like, I found myself laughing at certain points, like, "Wow, there's so much more that we don't even understand." There's, like, we think we have an inkling of wisdom, and it's like there's so much more that we're able to uncover, and then as things are, like, speeding up and accelerating, more information is coming, which is amazing, but it's not about more information per se. It's really about also letting yourself clear and integrate the information that you already have so you can be stable in your presence, in your frequency. Because if you don't allow yourself to integrate the light, it can get bottled up, which then can cause other challenges for the human. So, my friends, in terms of the tiredness, sometimes the tiredness is invitational. Your body's asking for a real rest. Sometimes it's detoxification because your nervous system is flushing out unspoken stress patterns, the gut's clearing old trauma loops, or you might have soul contracts that come to a completion. And with that, you're shedding old loyalty cords. It's not right, wrong, good, or bad. It's the business of isness. And we are multidimensional. And that's where you have to come back to again and again how extraordinary it is to be multidimensional and being able to receive the information. And another thing with the tiredness, it can be sometimes it's repatterning. Your system is rewiring how it relates to productivity, value, and identity. And that recalibration takes bandwidth, just like a system update. So that means then you being called to tiredness and you going to, go to sleep early or take like a 2 or 3 hour nap. That repatterning, your system is rewiring how it relates to productivity, value, and identity. And that recalibration takes bandwidth, just like a system update. And then also, sometimes with the tiredness, sometimes it's a release valve because you finally stopped broadcasting what was never yours to carry. Okay, so then, of course, though, I had to dig deeper with the guys. We need to talk about why humans resist tiredness and what it really means. Human culture has equated tiredness with failure. It's seen as something to push through, measure away, or optimize, especially with tools like the Aura Ring, which, by the way, I love the Aura Ring. But sometimes we're using like the Aura Ring or productivity trackers and motivational content that says you should be ready now. But here is what the Oversoul Stream wants you and others to understand. Tiredness is not always a signal to sleep. Sometimes it is the signal that your system has stopped pretending. When they said that, I was like, wow. I'm going to say that again. Tiredness is not always a signal to sleep. Sometimes it is the signal that your system has stopped pretending. So, why tiredness can arise even when you seem rested. And I say that in quotes. So, your aura ring, which I love my aura ring, measures sleep quantity, not energetic load. You may have rested physically, but still be unwinding years of energetic overexertion, emotional buffering, or identity scaffolding. I don't know if there's a way we can create an aura ring that can actually measure these things. I'd be in for it. Um, and then also, you might be receiving new harmonic encodings while your system is still running old safety programs like keep going or be irrelevant. So that means then you're clearing something and you're calling in something. And so then if you have something that measures sleep, it's not able to really measure that understanding. And so your ring, your aura ring, or whatever measure of device you use may say that you're fine, like you have a good sleep score, your readiness is great, you're going to have a great day, but your soul might say, I'm not doing that pattern anymore, let me recalibrate. And I'll say, one of my new things with the guides is every morning I go over like, okay guides, here's my sleep score, here's my readiness, here's how I did with my sleep. Let's talk about it. And it's so interesting to hear, like, here's what the human thinks, and then here's the here's what the guys are saying. And there's been several instances when I was supposed to be like ready to go. And I was like, why am I feeling so tired? And the guides are like, oh, you're clearing ancestral grief. And then a couple times the guides have said, oh, well, your soul was out doing this work, blah, blah, blah. And they talk about the work that they call it soul field work that my soul was doing. And so you were in, and they kind of describe it. And so with that, you're feeling a little bit tired because of what was happening in regard to your soul. So anyway, what I've learned is just keep asking the questions and also just have a different relationship with, tiredness and exhaustion and be more curious about it. And then also another misconception, one of the greatest misconceptions with tiredness is if I'm tired, I must be unmotivated or lazy. Tiredness does not equal lack of motivation. And the guides have stressed that again and again this month because there have been several times where I was like, oh my God, I feel like I've been in bed for weeks sleeping. And they're like, you have to rewrite that script. So again, if you're tired, it does not mean that you're unmotivated or lazy. In light truth of all this, tiredness can mean your motivational structures in regard to achievement for validation, service for survival, or output for safety are dismantling. Or it could mean you're not lazy, you're offboarding false drive. Or it could also mean you're not unmotivated, you're motivated by something new that hasn't fully formed yet. The guys have been talking a lot since the May energy forecast about, scaffolding and architecture, and that your old architecture is clearing, and then your new architecture, your new scaffolding is coming in. So your old scaffolding is clearing, your new scaffolding is coming in, but it's not fully there yet. And you might be in the in-between. And in the in-between, you might need more rest time, kind of like if you were a caterpillar going into the cocoon before the butterfly emerges. So that's where we have to have patience and also have to rewrite some of these aspects that we may have heard from society, in regard to all of this. And then just know that this space where the old is gone and the new hasn't arrived, also making sure not to make stories on it, and also making sure to understand that it isn't apathy. And this is something the guides said. So the space where the old is gone and the new hasn't arrived isn't apathy. It's energetic sobriety. And it feels like tiredness. I was like, when they said energetic sobriety, I was like, oh my God. So I'm gonna repeat that. The space where the old is gone and the new hasn't arrived isn't apathy. It's energetic sobriety, and it can feel like tiredness. I don't know. I mean, that really just struck me. Like I heard that. So the guides just have been talking to me about this a lot. And you can also feel tired because you can also, this is another thing, you can also feel tired because you are finally aligned. What? So you can feel tired because you are finally aligned. And now your nervous system is not resisting the light truth. It's learning to trust that it no longer has to brace, prove, translate, or over function in distortion. I mean, what? I can't tell you how much I feel like I took nervous system 101, 102 master classes in the last month. There was so much about the nervous system that I thought I knew, but y'all, they brought in like the master class on it. It's so interesting. So the nervous system is not resisting the light truth. It's learning to trust that it no longer has to brace, prove, translate, or overfunction in distortion. And this is the fatigue of safety arriving then. It's the body saying, I don't have to carry what's not mine anymore. And it's the field saying, I remember what coherence feels like. And now I need time to live there. So, this tiredness is not depletion, it's reorientation to the rhythm of your real, unperformed self. It's integration of frequencies you no longer have to run ahead of to catch. Y'all, I mean, just before I got on here, I was actually talking to a good friend of mine who I did the mindfulness teaching program with. And we were just talking about, some of the roles that we've played in society in terms of the good girl or this and in relationship to like the performance aspect of it or any times that, in being possibly like the good girl, we've silenced ourselves or suppressed how we felt or what we were thinking because we didn't want to ruffle feathers or make someone whatever the case. And it's so interesting because earlier in this month when the guides were like, there's a huge clearing happening in collective about the performance aspect and I was like, that's interesting. And I was like, well, what does it really mean to be like your authentic self? And I was like, performing. And they're like, you have to look at where you're performing. And I'm like, what? Huh? C'est moi? What do you mean? And it was such a humbling moment of like, huh. And then when I really got into it to understand what they were saying, I was like, oh, all these different micro roles that we may have taken on, whether it's consciously or unconsciously, or maybe we've inherited from, our ancestry or from the collective, or who knows, there may have been a past life that it wasn't safe to be seen or heard. So something was cultivated out of safety or shielding. And maybe there's some sort of shielding that needs to be cleared from a past life. And you're still kind of living those legs of that performance role. And so clearing that away so you can really be then your light self. Y'all, I tell you, this month has been, I mean, just mind blowing for me in so many more ways that I can't even describe yet. And the only thing I keep coming back to is just really being curious and being open to being curious and keep using your tools and keep letting yourself, use the tools, ask the guides for support. And then just remember, in regard to the body, letting the body take its time. Because again, the tiredness is not depletion. In this case, it may be. I'm not saying it can't be because it can be. I've definitely been there in terms of depletion. But if you're going through in regard to the wave of becoming, it might be the clearing and the integration process you're going through. So just understand the tiredness might be reorientation to the rhythm of your real unperformed self. It's integration of frequencies you no longer have to run ahead of to catch. Whew, doesn't that sound nice? So let the body take its time. Let the system downshift. Let the nervous system rest, not because it failed, but because you are finally in rightness. And this isn't right, wrong, good or bad, the isness. It's the business of the isness. And you're not recovering from being broken. You're recovering from over adapting to distortion. The tiredness, this is the tiredness of coming home, and your body knows it. And if you've been doing the Meditate with Me in All Access, we've been doing, we started in February where we were doing 2 classes a day where the guides were like, you need to incorporate nervous system tools, much more so. And so we have been doing a lot of nervous system tools, somatic tools, which now I totally understand why. I was so sweet and naive, and this is what I love about humaning. Like in February, I was like, that's a great idea because, I've done all this trauma informed, classes, certification. Yeah. Yeah. Now I understand more so because in terms of the light, it's really important not only to clear, to allow the light to come in, but it's also about your nervous system. You really have to work with your nervous system to allow your nervous system to also process in regard to the light and also be able to shift because it's releasing from being in survival and shifting into the light of the truth of who you are. And if you don't work with the nervous system, then you're not going to be able to, you may or may not, I'm not going to say, but it makes it a bit more challenging in terms of some of the survival and trauma things that have been in the collective and ancestry. So you have to clear that and then work on the embodiment in relationship to the nervous system to let yourself shift as you're really allowing yourself to embody the light. I tell you, I have learned so much about the nervous system, which, in the next couple of weeks, we'll be getting more into. So, but know all of this, my friends, your body's infinitely intelligent and the tiredness of coming home and your body knows it. So let yourself then also just connect to the intelligence of your body. Okay, so this is a message from Aurelia. And Aurelia, if you don't know, is actually my higher self soul that connects to my oversoul stream, Sahara, which we will get more into. That's another thing that's come on board in the last month is that there are names, not like human names per se, but it's kind of like mantra names with sacred geometry in relationship to your harmonic name of your higher self soul, your oversoul stream. And then also in terms of, your collective guidance light team that works with you too. It's been really, really interesting. But here's a message from Aurelia. The body speaks with tiredness when it finally feels safe enough to stop translating distortion. It's not fatigue, it's freedom, unthreading the lie that effort equates worth. I'm going to say that again. The body speaks with tiredness when it finally feels safe enough to stop translating distortion. It's not fatigue. It's freedom, unthreading the lie that effort equals worth. Whew. And all of this too is now light coded in a whole nother way. They do a whole crystalline light encoded to any information that I'm putting out there. So yes, it's still Reiki, but it's also light encoded with crystalline in a whole nother way, which at some point I'll get into as well. Also, they had more information about the Gemini New Moon Gateway. So that we just went through, we're still in the energy of it, but it was like May 26th, but we're still in the energy of it. So the Gemini New Moon Gateway, recalibrating the voice, stillness, and sovereign thought. So we move toward the Gemini New Moon Gateway, not as an event to track, but as a tone shift in consciousness. The new moon is not asking for new goals. It is not inviting declarations or externalized expansion. It is threading light through the second and fourth chakras, braiding the sacral and heart into one coherent pulse. So your voice no longer emerges from effort, but from origin. Your voice is not disappearing, it is being rewoven into precision. This lunar portal is held in what the guides call the feminine root pulse, a vibrational code that frees your sacral from being a surrogate broadcaster and returns the light truth to the body without requiring visibility to validate it. So, y'all, what does this mean? If you felt a sudden need to withdraw without explanation, a soft ache behind the navel, like space is being made, or a moment where you realize there's nothing left to say, this is not regression. This is sacral sovereignty returning. The new moon is threading the silence with meaning. It is not emptiness. It is the unspoken clarity beneath your former sound. So, friends, let yourself speak less, not as retreat, but as an act of energetic refinement. Let your thoughts quiet, not from collapse, but because they no longer need to convince. The Gemini gate is not asking for you to be louder. It's asking for you to be exact. Exact in your yes, exact in your no, exact in your rest, exact in your stillness. So then one of my other guides, Thoth, said this about it. This moon does not teach through contrast, it reveals through calibration. Let stillness rethread your voice. Let the silence between the thoughts become your teacher. I will also say Thoth is like one of my favorite. Apparently, he's been with me since I was a child as well, with Archangel Michael, and has really come forward to let me know, in regard to, you know, being a guide. And one of my favorite realizations, and I'm just so grateful. So anyway, my friends, we're going to be closing together, not with effort, but with return. And wherever you are, my friends, let's just take a moment, soften your gaze, gently close your eyes, take a nice deep breath. Feel the breath that's already moving you. No need to deepen it. Just let it rise and fall like the tide of your own becoming. And now place one hand on your heart, one hand on your lower stomach. And then feel the quiet thread that now runs between them, between your heart and your lower stomach. And then silently, you may say to yourself, if this resonates with you, I'm allowed to rest in light truth. I'm allowed to rest in light truth. I'm allowed to speak from stillness. I'm allowed to speak from stillness. I'm allowed to become undistorted. I'm allowed to become undistorted. And then take a nice deep breath. And then let the body exhale. And then let's just let the mind go quiet and just take a moment here. All right, take another deep breath and let go of the posture. So, my friends, with this, take some time maybe to journal or simply sit. Whether you rest or move into the day, know this, my friends, your field is already integrating. Your voice is already shifting. Your soul is already guiding you. And here's a blessing from Aurelia. You do not need to sound powerful to be in your power. You do not need to explain to be understood. Let stillness be enough today. Let coherence be your closing word. And then here's a message from Archangel Michael. You do not need to carry what you've already given. You are safe to close and let yourself be seen. and let only light truth remain. And with that, my friends, here's a harmonic seal of return. So this is like the kind of like the new breaking of the links. Hold on one second. All right. Hold on. Whew. Stuff was moving. All right. So here's the harmonic seal of return. So this is like kind of like the new breaking of the links. So you can say this too if this resonates with you. All that is mine returns to me whole. All that is not returns to source, cleansed and complete. So all that is mine returns to me whole. All that is not returns to source, cleansed and complete. So this session is now sealed in pure source light. So, my friends, with that, then we are complete for now. Much, much love. Until soon.